combine small town roots with business savvy, and you've got the Rural Rundown podcast. We're sharing our marketing and branding strategies, tips, and tricks that rural businesses can use to educate, inspire, and entertain their customers, and to help you make sales and hit profit goals. So what does it take to go from your mom is your only fan to famous in a small town? Tune in and listen up as we feature business owners and organizations that are doing big things in their community and creating opportunities for generations to come. Merry Christmas, happy holidays. We are here. We're excited to record this today, talking about our book club for Q4. Rach, tell them what we read.
We read Atomic Habits by James Clear. I know there's more to that. 1 second, let me pick up my book. It's got more title than that, doesn't it? Atomic Habits, an easy and proven way to build good habits and break bad ones. Tiny change, remarkable results.
I think that's so perfect as we move into the new year, because lots of people make New Year's resolutions. Do you make New Year's resolutions? I
used to a lot. Now I just I feel like I used to make resolutions in college, and then it kind of became a thing to like have a word of the year. So I've done that the last couple of years. And now this year, I have no idea what I'm going to do, but we'll see. What about you?
I feel like maybe I used to make resolutions, but very like loosely. Like I don't ever remember being like, I'm going to quit doing this, or I'm going to like do this differently. But using it as like a time to just like refocus. And like, I always kind of look at like, okay, where am I at in life? Is this where I want to be? Where do I want to be differently? So using it as a time to just like reflect a lot more than focus on like what's ahead. So kind of like trying to like bring it back to be present. And then I feel like as a business owner, when I transitioned into running my own business, it became business goals, right? Like that's what it became versus like resolutions for myself or things like that. Like it just became like goals, like where do I want my business to go this year?
Yeah.
So
I like that a lot. One of the things that you said that stuck out is I've always read that at the end of the year, you should do like an audit on your whole year ahead, for business, but you can also do it for your personal life. And I always tell myself that I want to do that because I see the value in it. But then like actually, and maybe we can break this down into what we talk about in the book. It seems like so much that I like don't even want to try. But if I broke it down into little things, it probably would actually get done. Yeah. So that's something I would like to do every year. I haven't successfully done it yet, I don't think, but.
So it's funny because we were both just talking before we hopped on here, how like our lives seem chaotic. That's the word I'm using today. My day has been chaotic. During this time of year, because we reached the end of the year. You and I are both like service-based businesses, so a lot of businesses want to get things done before the end of the year or get a jump start on the new year ahead, plus like just holiday stuff, family stuff, whatever. So being very busy, lots of events happening, lots of people to see, things to do, projects to complete. I was funny. I sent you a birthday card this month, and I was like, yes, that was my New Year's resolution. We moved into our house, and I asked people for their addresses because I wanted to send snail mail, but I didn't get good at it until November. So it's kind of like that thing where it's like, oh, last ditch effort at my New Year's resolution that I set, 12 months ago. So it's been really interesting to read this book at this stage of being really busy. And I'm really like refocusing on myself and my business and what I want to happen. But even like just the day-to-day stuff, like how can I make my day less chaotic? Like what are some routines that I can get into? So like, what's a good morning routine? Like, can I set aside some time every day to like journal and read, some pages of my book and enjoy a cup of coffee before I like go to the gym? I found that I have to go to the gym in the morning. Otherwise my day will get packed full of projects and meetings. And then it'll be like 6:00. And then I'm like, crap, I need to make dinner. I don't want to go to the gym right now. So just different things like that. It's been really interesting to read this book and dissect how habits work, and then be able to like, oh, how can I put this into my own life?
Yes. And I like that the book, like, there's not just, obviously there's the framework, but there's not just one way to do it. There's multiple different, like, reframing something and making it work for your life, which I think is kind of freeing, because we think sometimes we have to do this formula, and if we don't fit into the formula, we fail. But there's actually quite a few different ways you can make a habit or break a habit. It's just what works for you, and probably specific to whatever that is you're trying to do for all, the different things. So
Yeah. Yeah. And like where you're trying to make it in your life. Okay. So like the 4 basic stages of a habit, right? This is how James Clear breaks it down is you have a cue, then a craving, a response, then a reward. Like that's how habits form. That's the like very break it down basics to like what you're doing. So you can look at it like look at your life and be like, okay, where are my bad habits? And then saying like, okay, what does that craving look like? The response is the habit, the doing the part, the bad thing you're doing. And then what is the reward I get from that? Right. So you can kind of like reverse engineer it sometimes to be like, whoa, I want to break this bad habit. How do I break the cue that comes before it to stop the bad habit? So kind of like having to focus on your life. That was interesting for me to like look at different places and be like, okay, what are the cues that get me to that point? Like, because a lot of times I feel like I'll do this thing and I'll try to like force myself into being like, if I can't keep an appointment with myself, who can I keep an appointment with? And then it like triggers a thing where it's like, if I don't go to the gym, like that's my appointment with myself. If I like break that, then I beat myself up and be like, is this how I run my business? Is this how I do things? Is this how I treat friends? But instead of beating myself up, can I take it back to the cue and be like, whoa, where is the moment that I miss the gym? Like I hit snooze on my alarm and I go back to sleep, and which causes the other things, and the response is not going to the gym because I'm late to start my day, and it just triggers the whole day.
yep. I think what it boils down to, he talks about this, instead of like having goals, you have to have systems.
Mm-hmm.
Sounds so like boring and like it's hard work, but like at the same time, it's not the first time any of you have ever heard that systems are like the key to
Yeah.
key to success. It's just the way we have to, like you said, re-engineer our thinking into a system to make it work for us. And I think another thought I had here is sometimes some tendency I have is to like overcomplicate everything. So I'm like, oh, how do you have this beautiful shiny system? Where I probably really don't. I just need to make it clear, like you said, what exactly is preventing me from doing what I want to do, or what would make me want to do what I want to do, outline it, and then just follow it and repeat it. And then the more it becomes something you do, and it becomes you, which was one of the quotes I wrote down, is quite literally, you become your habits.
Yeah.
Which really, like, I don't know, it stuck out to me, but I'm like, oh, that's crazy. Because I think about what I do every day. Like he outlines this really well in the book. If I think about what I do every day, is that the person I want to be? Well, that is the person I'm being when I'm repeating those things over and over again. Certain things that I do want to do and that I don't want to do. So I thought that was kind of a cool part of the book too.
Sorry, I thought my doorbell was gonna play a song. Alexa just started talking to me. So that's really interesting that you say that, because the other thing I've been thinking about as I've been reading this book was the conversation we had with Coach Kaya a few weeks ago, when she was like, she always tells this story, like how she wasn't a hat person. And then her friend's like, Kaya, you know how you become a hat person? You put on the hat. And it's like, I've been thinking a lot about like going to the gym. Like I want to be like, I want to lose weight, but I also like look at successful business owners, their like mental toughness and like physical toughness is higher. Like if I want to be a good business owner, if I want to like be a gym person, I just simply have to go to the gym. And now I'm a gym person. Like, and that habit, like creating the habit of doing it, like that's what makes you that person. So along the same lines where I'm like, okay, yeah, like all you have to do is just put on the hat, go to the gym, or like do the thing. I was one part of the book that I thought was so interesting was he talked about a ballerina who her thing too is like strengthening mental toughness, whatever. her habit, the part of the habit was getting in the cab and telling the cab driver the location of the gym. Like that was the habit. And then when she got there, it's like, well, now you're here, you do the thing. And I'm like, oh my God, like that's it. Then it's over. Like, you know what I mean? Like the response or the reward is now you're at the gym. Like you're already there. You do the work and then you go home. Like the cue was to wake up, get in the cab, and telling the cab driver the location. Like that's it. And I'm like, why does that feel so simple? Like, you know, why does that feel like duh? You know,
No.
I felt like that a lot through this book where I was like, well, okay.
Yeah. I feel like that's, well, just as humans, like that's probably our tendency is to overcomplicate things. And when you break something down, that's like a duh moment. It makes you feel stupid.
Yes.
And the thing I liked about it too is the way James Clear had written about it is you're not going to be perfect. Like just because say you want to go to the gym 7 days a week, that's ambitious, but let's say you did, just because you missed 2 days doesn't mean you're not a gym goer anymore, as long as you're getting your butt back into the door, back into the gym door. And it was, I think the thing that gave me like some freedom when I was reading this was your habits. And you need to have more like checks in the I did it today column than versus I didn't. So have more checks going for you in the place you want to be versus not going for you, you're still winning, instead of the mentality that I often take is all or nothing. Like if I missed a day, I started a workout challenge and I missed 2 days out of the 7, well, I might as well quit and not finish the month because it's not. So I think that was another thing that I really liked reading. It's like, well, duh, of course you don't have to do it every single time and get it right every single time. But sometimes I beat myself up if I mess up once and then up. So I thought that was kind of a cool take on it too.
Yeah. And I love the systems conversation, because I think you and I have talked about it on this podcast before, that we are both like in this place where our businesses are growing and expanding, so we're hiring people. And you know, externally you and I have had this conversation where I'm like, I don't know how to put what I do in my brain and write it down for somebody as like the process of how to do it. Like I want to hand something off and for them to be like, okay, like you know how to do it. But that's not realistic. Like we don't just wake up knowing how to walk when we're tiny little kids, you know, like we have to observe people, we see them walking, we understand how it works. Like that's the process of it. So like me, again, it's like a lot of that self-reflection and going back and like breaking it down to be like, okay, what are the systems, what are the steps? And then as I think about growing my business and hiring more people, it's like they have to adhere by these systems. Like I have to write these systems out, otherwise it's just chaos, you know, like without systems it doesn't function, like it doesn't work that way. So yeah, it's been very interesting reading this book at this time period in the year. And I think just like, you know, it just happens at a time in my business as well.
Yeah. The kind of the next point that I wanted to transition into that I had written down was I found the story that he shares about the environment that you're in, and you kind of touched on it a little bit, I think already, but like the environment that you're in a lot of times can be a really big factor in whether a habit takes place or not. So behavior continues. So the story he started with was, and when I read this the first time, I actually remember talking to my dad and telling him this story because I thought it was so interesting. But in the Vietnam War, a bunch of vets had come back. They were addicted to heroin because they had started using it in Vietnam. And then when they came back to the United States and got back into their like normal life routine, they weren't no longer like addicted. It wasn't a problem for them because the habit was attributed and associated with the environment that they were in before. And then he had made another association with when we think about people who get sent to like rehab for addictions here. Well, if they're addicted at home, you send them to rehab and they get clean and then they come back to home. It's so easier for them to get back into those old habits. And I had never thought of that before, or like had heard of a story like that before. And it made so much sense to me because it also made me think we have to have empathy for other people and some of the habits they have. It's easy to judge people,
Yeah.
but we're all kind of conditioned to our environments and the habits that go along with them. And so if you can change your environment in a certain way, I mean, it could change your habits. But I thought that was just like something I had never really connected and put much thought to before. So I don't know. Did you that part of the book stick out to you at all?
Yeah, it did. And he was talking about like, and smokers too. Like if you're doing a certain task, like that's when you light up to smoke, like that's when you're always going to do it. Like if you want to quit smoking, like change your environment, stop doing the like cue that gets you to the point where you're like smoking. Because I've heard people say too, like smoking is the hardest thing in the world to quit. Like it's the most addictive like trait or whatever. But it's like, well, if you change your environment, like it wouldn't be there. That trigger wouldn't be there. The people that you normally smoke with wouldn't be there. It's the whole thing. Like I think about my life and how my life has changed, but it's like Oli and I don't drink anymore. And if you were my friend in college, like I'm a drinker and I love going out and I love partying and I love like doing the thing. But then our lives changed and we just said, even when we first got together, when we were on the road, it was like, oh, let's try a new brewery. Let's check out a new place. Let's do something different. And then it was like, I just don't want to drink anymore. And it started as like a 30-day thing to like, let's see how our creativity will change if we don't have any alcohol in our system. Like, let's see what that looks like. And then when we stopped drinking, because it's just the two of us, we were traveling full time by ourselves. If one of us wasn't drinking, the other one wasn't going to drink alone. And then we just stopped. Like it's so interesting to see like how your habits can change, or like I don't even look at the alcohol menu when we go places anymore, whereas before it was like, oh, what is like a fun drink that they have here locally, or what is something like new, and now it doesn't even like cross my mind. Like it's so interesting to see when you change the environment that you live in at home, how that changes the rest of your life, really. And I think about the same as like being business owners. I think I've talked about this with many people before, like being business owners, when you kind of go through a struggle of like, if you're the only business owner in your family or you're the only business owner in your friend group, there's a hump there, or like a stressful time when it's like, other people look at you as being like, well, you work for yourself, like you can take all the vacation you want, or you can take naps in the middle of the day, like I have to work. And I'm like, but it's not actually like that, like. So a lot of people kind of like strive for making a ecosystem or a network of other business owners to kind of like rely on, because their friends and family don't get it. So it's interesting. I think it goes along with that, like the saying of like the 5 people you surround yourself with the most, like you pick up on their habits and you pick up on their things. I think that's like the same concept, right? With like your environment that you're in, like that's how your habits are going to adapt and change.
Yeah. That's cool. That's I get totally see that now, that as you're saying that totally makes a lot of sense. Yeah. What
um I know, I'm just looking here. Okay, so I have one thing about like systems and processes that I wrote down. One thing I don't know where this point comes from. I'll focus on the systems. So focusing on your systems, you fall to the level of your systems. That's what I wrote down in my notes. And I was like, yes. And I think that's like, again, me, like what I'm picking out because of where I'm at in my business and my life, where I'm like, if I don't have these systems in place, like I'm only as good as what that system is. So you fall to the level of your systems, and then the commitment to the process that will determine your progress. So like looking at the systems and processes that you have in place, and then the commitment to the process, which I think goes along with this last one I have, where it says you should be far more concerned with your current trajectory than your current results. And I struggle with that so bad, thinking like, well, this is where I'm at right now. How am I ever going to get to the spot where I want to be? But instead, like I need to be focused with the current trajectory and not the current results.
Yes. I think this is probably like the theme throughout the book, because I don't even remember where it was, but that hits home for me too, because I feel like it kind of described, like, you keep doing your habit, and you finally almost have like a breakthrough moment where you finally see what you wanted, or it might look different than what you originally wanted. And that's why you have to, like you said, focus on that. And one of the things too that connects with that is, I think there's a chapter on tracking your habits, like
Yeah.
tracking the years, which I really liked, because it makes me think of, I have this, like Apple Watch, and when I can get really like into like, did I get my steps in for the day? Like
Yeah.
wild about it. But it's not just about the steps. It's about why I need those steps. What is this attributing to my life? It's about my health. It's about getting my exercise, movement,
Yep.
and not getting so caught up in the tracking and the results and the numbers. I thought they're helpful because they can help you keep a habit, but they're like not the end all be all. I thought that was kind of interesting too. Like, it's almost like a helper, but like you said, you got to focus on the big picture.
Yeah. I think about, if anybody follows Raising Ruschel, who is on Instagram, she does this challenge where she invites people to track their habits. It's like 5 areas, I think what it is. I always mean to download the printable that she has, and then I just, escapes me. But I see her talking about that a lot too, where it's like, when you said earlier, like, it's the checking off the things that like you did do versus the things that you didn't do, and that it's still, you still go the full circle. Like, you don't just stop because you missed one day, right? Like, you just keep going. You have to keep going, and that's ultimately what creates a habit too. There's a little bit of talk in the book where it's like, how long does it take to create a habit? And it's not about how long or how, what that looks like. It's the repetitions that go into it. So I remember reading this kind of like case study, I guess, in The Artist's Way, because I read that book a while ago, where James Clear talks about it in the book. There's a photography professor who splits the class into 2 groups, and one group, he asks them to be the quality group, and they have to take, it doesn't matter if how many photos they take, they just need one perfect picture. It has to be 100% perfect, no like issues with it at all. Versus the other half of the group is the quantity group, and they got their score based on the number of photos they took. So like 1 to 50 was a D, 50 to a 200 was a C, so on and so forth. And what happens at the end, and which is like, Oli says this to me all the time, where like, you have to get your reps in, and he teaches that in equine photo school, where it's like, you don't get better by just like going to workshops, going to courses, asking people like, okay, like, what do I do? Like, Oli could sit there and tell you in equine photo school, like, how to get the best picture. But if you don't put in the reps, then it's never going to like work for you. Right. And it's the same with like anybody in the online space. If you're going to somebody else looking for like the perfect formula, like, it doesn't exist. You have to put in the reps. So what happened in this case study is that the quality group spent so much time talking about what the perfect photo is, and they conceptualize the perfect photo, versus the quantity group actually had the better pictures in it because they're putting in the reps and they're doing it. They're trying new practices. They're seeing what works, what doesn't work. They're learning the skill of actually pushing the button on the camera and making the photo work. And so I'm like, that one just like kind of smacked me in the face too, where it's like, you have to get in the reps. Like, I could sit here all day and be like, oh, I want to try this in business, or I'm not making enough money, or I want to have more clients, I'm not doing this, versus just getting the clients, doing the thing, that kind of like put on your blinders and just like do the dang thing. Like, all of that, I feels like kind of falls into these habits. And when you put in the reps and you actually do the habits, the same thing with this quality or this quantity group, then it becomes a habit quicker because you are doing, you're going through the cycle of the habit and you're learning along the way. And that's what makes it a habit, like, because of the repetitions that you're doing.
Yeah. I love that case study because, again, like, sometimes I can think, like you said, you get so focused on like being perfect and the perfect thing instead of just doing it.
Yep.
you'll get there. You'll be a lot better than just sitting and thinking. Then,
Yep.
yeah, that's such a
He
good.
talked about like repetitions, like you know, like a habit becomes a habit. Like you could train yourself to have a habit in 2 weeks if you took 20 photos or 100 photos a day, right? For 2 weeks, every day you took 200 photos. Or if you took one photo a day every day for a year, like that's the difference between like you get your habit down in 2 weeks versus you get your habit down in a year. Like it's the number of repetitions that come into it. Like that's how you can build a habit faster.
Yep, I like that.
Okay, the next note that I have, I feel like this kind of like goes, this is a good next one. I have so many feelings on this one, and I felt like really sad about what he talked about here. So he talks about the deepest human desire is to belong. And I was like, oh, that there's so much to unpack there. We think about being business owners, a lot of people I feel like struggle with the imposter syndrome. So this deepest human desire to belong, I feel like that's where like the comparison trap and imposter syndrome comes from, because we look at all these people, we're like, we want to be like them, or like they're doing better than I am in X, Y, and Z. How do I fit in? And that's the whole like environment, and your habits change with your environment too. Like that there's so much so much that I could like say here to be like, you fit in by changing your environment, or like knowing that the deepest desire is to fit in, is to belong. But I was like, he goes on to talk about these chimpanzees. So he talked about like if chimps learn how to crack nuts, and he has like one group of chimps that have this like really like great way to crack nuts, it works out for them and they're like succeeding by far, right? But he takes one chimpanzee and puts them in the group of chimps that have a lesser way of cracking nuts. They're not efficient, they're not getting as much nut out of it, they're whatever. The chimpanzee who has the higher, like more effective way of cracking nuts, he will start to move into a lesser direction to crack nuts with the group of chimps that are doing it in a lesser method, because he wants to fit in. He doesn't want to stand out and he doesn't want to be called out. Like part of that is like a survival thing, that like if he's better than everybody else, then the lower ones, you know, like will chop the poppy down, like that concept of like cutting poppies. But I was like, how sad. Like, I think, how often do we do that as entrepreneurs, where I feel imposter syndrome? So I'm like out searching for what other people are doing and changing my systems based on what I think everybody else is doing. When instead, like, I could be building my own systems, my own habits, and succeeding higher than other people. Like I wouldn't know if I would succeed more or if I would fail more, because I'm so stuck with trying to fit in with everybody else.
Yeah. That story, I know exactly what you're talking about, because that one also hit me. Like, it made me feel really sad that like we will lessen ourselves or do things just to fit in. But at
Yes.
the same time, like, it's the safetyness in that. So like I don't know how to feel about it either, because it's like, yes, if you do something differently, it's probably gonna get definitely gonna get some
Yep.
eyebrows drawn, because you're not doing it like everyone else. But there's also the side of sometimes you do kind of duplicate the things that you see that work. So how do you maybe have best of both worlds,
Right.
or know when to see? It's really hard. I don't know.
Yeah. And so that's opened a lot of like, what are the habits or what are the systems? You know, we talk about systems. What are the systems I'm putting into my business because I see that they work and I use the repetition of like how they work with my clients, versus systems I'm implementing because I saw, you know, other people doing it this way. Am I like on the right track, or am I not? Am I lessening myself, you know, to be like everybody else because it's not the same system I would have used, or am I making it better? I don't know. So I think that's a lot of like objectively looking at yourself, your business, and what you're doing to really figure out like am I doing this because I'm seeing that it's working? Am I getting good results? Or am I doing it because that's what everybody says you should do?
Mm-hmm. That's a good one. Think about that.
That's, yeah, very good one. Do you have anything else on that, Rach?
No, I don't. I really don't. I think I kind of went through everything that I had taken notes on. So if you got any more.
I think like the last thing that I kind of have is, he talks about the 4 laws of the habit, and he breaks it down. So the cue, craving, response, and then the reward. So like how can you create a good habit? And he talks about like the first law is to make it obvious. So like if you want to go to the gym more, you set out your gym bag and your shoes so that they're like there in the morning. Making it attractive. Like, so I do this when I go to the gym. I make it attractive that if I go to the gym, then I also get to go to the hydro beds that they have at the gym. Like telling myself, like, okay, if I go there and I'm there for an hour, then I get to spend 10 minutes in the hydro bed. Making it easy. That's the whole concept of like your habit is telling the cabbie the location of the gym versus like making your habit trying to be like, I need to run a mile every day or whatever it is, and then making it satisfying. So like how can you make your habit satisfying? And I think about my habit that I'm working on, going to the gym, spending time on myself. Like I make it satisfying by watching a YouTube video that I have like saw and wanted to watch, or spending time in a podcast, like, just spending that time on myself and being with myself, and then making it satisfying with the hydro bed too. Is that like, okay, I did this, like I'm here, I get to spend the time with myself, I get a little bit of a hydro massage, I feel good. So using those laws to build your habits and looking at structuring habits that way, to me, that's kind of been like goal changing. Like that's been like changed a lot of my goals and things that I'm striving for.
Yes, I don't know all of them right off the top of my head, but then there was the opposite way of how to break a habit.
Yes.
And one of the points that I'm going to do was make it visible. So instead of obvious, I think it's make it invisible. Yep. So one of the things that I personally don't like that I do is when Jaron comes home from daycare, we only get so much amount of time in between supper and going to bed. So I want to be present with him and be paying attention. So this is more of a personal one than anything, but sometimes I find myself just on my phone instead of like playing with him or asking him questions. And then I feel guilty. I get the mom guilt because it's like, well, what are you doing? He's going to be in bed in an hour and you've been on your phone for 20 minutes. So my thought is when I put my phone away and I don't actually know where it is, I don't feel the need to check it. Yeah. So that's kind of my like hacking with the make it invisible, at least working on that.
Yeah. No, I love that. Okay, so the reverse, because I pulled them up because I was like, I want to remember those. This is how the book is broken down. When you're reading the book, it's broken down into these chapters. But of course, I didn't write those notes down when I was writing it. So the reverse is to make it invisible, make it unattractive, make it difficult, make it unsatisfying. So kind of what you were saying to in the book, the example is like, if you want to watch less TV, like make it invisible, like put it in the closet when you're done with it, or cover it up or whatever. Making it unattractive, or making it difficult. If you unplug the TV every time you're done using it, then it's like difficult to do it, and like plug it back in, or make it unsatisfying. So I can't pull one off the top of my head of like how to make TV unsatisfying. But like only allowing yourself to like watch, like if I just only watch TV when we watched all of Oli's shows, to me that would be like unsatisfying. So then I would not do it, like everybody wants to control the remote once in a while. So yeah, those are like different ways when you want to change your behavior, or, look at your habits differently. When you break it down like that, it's like, okay, yeah, like here's maybe how we could like curb this or fix it. One thing I've been doing the last few months is plugging in my phone outside of the bedroom, because I found too many times I'd wake up in the morning, look at my phone, check my emails first thing, and then it would dictate my whole day. So I have been like trying to do that habit. So that's kind of like the same thing, like making it invisible or making it unattractive. Like I have to go out and get my phone from the kitchen and go back to bed, like making it difficult too, that I'm like, well, this is annoying. Like if I'm going to go out into the kitchen, like I'm going to, get up, change, go to the bathroom, whatever, before I go out there to the kitchen. And by that point, I'm like, well, I'm out of bed. So I'm
Yeah,
not going back. So yeah, those are kind of like different things that I've been implementing.
yes. The one last thing I did see here that I didn't talk about was, I thought this is interesting. Sometimes when we think about like making a new habit or changing a habit, it feels like it's going to be a really big haul and overtaking.
Yeah.
But he talks about in the book that habits actually open up freedom. It might take some time, but it like, when you have a system, your day is going to move along instead of feeling like, oh, I have to do this, or
Oh
oh.
yeah.
I thought that was kind of interesting too. Another way to think about it, like it feels like it's so hard at first, but it's really opening you up to the freedom that you wanted in the first place. So
Yeah, I had that note here. The point is to stop decision fatigue, because I feel like I deal with that all the time. So along the same lines, like you can solve problems and with little or no energy when you have these habits in place that like help you, like you said, free up space for other things, right? Like if I have a habit in the morning when I wake up, if I have the choice to look at my phone, go through my stuff, check my emails, or it's like I literally have nothing else to do but to like wake up, change my clothes, go to the bathroom, and leave my bedroom. That changes things and it makes way less decisions for me than if I open up my phone and decide, like, am I going social? Am I going to go on my emails? Am I going to answer this email? I'm going to save it for later. Like, what am I going to do?
yep.
And I struggle with decision fatigue all day long. It starts in the closet. Oli has caught me multiple times where I'm like standing there and I'm like, what am I going to wear today? Like, even if I work from home, like, what am I going to put on today? Oli's like, do you want to know how I like fix that? He only wears like UPF 50 shirts. So they're the same kind of shirt in all different colors. And we do our own sublimation and he's branded, like his business is always on his shirt. So it's like it's Equine Photo School, Oli's images, it's whatever on his shirt. Or if we go certain places, like he buys these same kind of shirts, like as souvenir stuff. He's like, I literally wear the same type of shirt every day. So I just pick a shirt and I pick a pair of pants. I'm like, okay. Right. And he's like, you, on the other hand, have this whole half of closet. Like, here's my sweaters. Here's my like graphic t-shirts. Here's these things. Like, what is today going to be like? And what should I wear? Should I are we going somewhere? Should I put on like a dress or a skirt? Like, whatever. And he's just like, I literally pick the same kind of t-shirt and a pair of pants every day and I go. And he's like out of the bedroom way before I am. And I'm still sitting in the closet, like, what am I going to wear today? Like, he's like, that's how you start every day. No wonder you're decision fatigued by dinner. And he's like, what do you want to eat? And I'm like, I don't know. Like, I can't make any more decisions today.
But I also feel like, no, tell me I'm wrong, I feel like you like enjoy style and clothing. So like that a little bit too plays into it, that you have more options because you probably like putting together an outfit. So you know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
I feel like
absolutely.
for people who don't, not that, I don't know, not that Oli doesn't care about that, but I feel like,
but he does it.
Yeah, exactly. Like if you kind of you like clothing, you like having the options, and it's hard to narrow it down because you want to have a vibe, or you want to know. I get that.
Yeah, but it does like lend way. Like, he's very true. Like, you're right. I do spend every day like, what am I going to wear today? Versus like put on the same thing and just move along with your day. Like, oh, I didn't realize I was like making so many decisions every day until he pointed it out. He does it when I'm at the grocery store too, where I'm like, we recently do grocery delivery because we are really trying to like farm out stuff that takes time away from us, like being our business. So he's like, what do you need to add to the shopping list? I'm like, oh, I need to add bread. He's like, well, what kind of bread do you like? I'm like, well, I don't know. He's like, what do you mean? Like, And I was like, no, I literally have no idea what kind of bread. I need to look at it to like see what it is. And he's like, what is wrong with you? Like, this is why we can't go to the grocery store and why it takes so long. Cause I like go to the aisle and I look at all the bread and I'm like, oh, well, like that bread was good last time, but what if I want to try this other bread? Like, I cannot be made to like make decisions. I do. And I get decision fatigued constantly because of this, where if I like made a good habit of just eating the same kind of bread all the time, then our grocery list would be much quicker and probably cheaper.
Yeah. Well, I feel like there's a little bit of give and take there. Like if that's a habit you want to have, that's fine. But sometimes you gotta have a little variety too,
Yeah.
depending on parts of your life. So I think you're a person.
Yeah.
Love it. Oh, I mean, I think then basically, unless you had anything else, that kind of rounds out our discussion on Atomic Habits.
Yeah.
I mean, I would recommend this book, I think, for your personal life, or if you're an entrepreneur, business owner, or someone who just works in a job and you kind of want to see if you can get more efficient. Taking on to our last conversation, I think sometimes we wonder, like, how in the world could I add more capacity to my life? Well, I think sometimes maybe it's in the habits and in the systems could open up more capacity. So I really like the book for that. I think I need to probably take some time and actually, decide which habits I'd like to do.
Yeah.
But I liked it. What were your overall thoughts?
I loved it. I felt like I wanted to like every step of the way. I wanted to like dissect my life. And again, maybe it's just because of the time of year that we read it, or like what may have you. I just felt like, man, like a lot of these points were like really hitting home and like hitting on different parts of my life and my business that I really want to like adjust or change or focus on. But yeah, definitely a great book. James Clear also has lots of parts of the book where it's like, oh, go onto our website and download this. So like a habit tracker, like a habit scorecard kind of thing too, to like score your habits. So that was really interesting to have those pieces of work available as well, beyond just the book, but actually like here's some tips and some tools that you can use to like put these into action into your life. So I thought that was a great part of the book as well, having access to those things. But yeah, overall I really enjoyed it. Oli had read this book already and I had heard different parts of it via audiobook when we were traveling together, but I had not read the book in its entirety before. And it was definitely it was a very good book. I wish I would have read it sooner, probably, before now. But yeah, I definitely recommend it also to anybody that is, again, personal business. If you are a manager of people, I think that would be great too, to look at the systems of the people below you, how you can help habits of your team. So yeah, definitely a great book.
Yay. Okay, we're going to announce then what our next book will be for Q1 in 2022. I can't believe we get to say that already, but
I know.
go
I
ahead.
really feel like 2020 just happened.
I know.
It's been
Wow.
crazy. Actually, personal story. Sorry to insert this. Yesterday has been 1 year since we quit traveling full time. So yesterday was the last day that we ever shot pictures for Always Images. And then we came here to Arizona on like the 15th of December. It was like the 15th or 16th we got to Arizona and we started looking for houses. So yeah, we've almost been a year out of this like new, for us, life. When we think about habits, I think about like, when we were on the road, we ate gas station food and fast food and whatever we could like get our hands on, versus I just said to Oli last night, like, man, we've become domesticated because we ate ice cream at home and then like put the ice cream back into the freezer. I was like, we never had like ice cream on hand when we lived in the trailer, just like simple things to like treat ourselves to. We would always go outside or like out and do that stuff, versus like we made steaks on the grill last night. We had like steaks and rice for dinner, and then we had ice cream. And when we sat down to spend some time on the couch together last night, and I was like, our life has changed so much in a year. and like what has been going on. So yeah, I feel like we just finished 2020. I cannot believe we're rolling into 2021. So our book for the first quarter, so January, February, March, we will review it in March, is Big Magic by Elizabeth Gilbert. I've read this book before. I absolutely love this book. This is, I hate to like get it wrong, so I should pull it down and see what it says exactly. To me, this book was very instrumental when I was starting my business and figuring out like what I wanted to do in my business and what was kind of like going on. So Elizabeth Gilbert, she is a writer of Eat, Pray, Love. That was her first book that she did. So yeah, Big Magic, Creative Living Beyond Fear. This is really talking about like your intuition, diving into your intuition, how to take ideas and put them into action, talking about courage and persistence, stuff like that. So this is I think this is like really easy to digest and easy to read too. They're kind of like, they're broke up into chapters, but then like sub chapters within that. So they're really quick reads where you can like just grab it and read a really quick part. So yeah, Elizabeth Gilbert, Big Magic. That's our Q1 book.
I'm so excited. I haven't read this one, so I'm looking forward to it. I think it'll be a good one to kick off the year. And we invite you guys to join us. So what do they need to know? I'm like, my brain is just kind of stopping right now. We'll have a link to buy it.
Absolutely. We'll include a link in the show notes and then on our website, and then you can kind of see the books that we've reviewed already. And then we really like encourage you to read with us and then join us in March. Well, that's it for this episode of the Rural Rundown podcast.
Thanks for listening. You can always find us on social media at the Rural Rundown.
And if you really liked this episode, we would totally love it if you gave us a review and gave us a little rating.
It would mean so much to us. And for more small town roots and business savvy, catch us on the next one.